Good afternoon on this Friday. Welcome back to another Bernie Miklasz Show here on YouTube. Thanks for your support. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for all the great comments that you leave. I enjoy reading them, even when I get ticked off at them. I'm sure you get ticked off at me too, right? We're in this together. A couple of things for you, a couple program notes. First of all, apologize I did not do a video on Thursday. My home internet system just blew up. The wireless system went kaput. Couldn't get it going. Tried to set up a hotspot. That didn't work. Tried to shoot a video using my smartphone. That worked only to a point. I just decided to kind of take the loss yesterday, take the L yesterday. And finally, this late this morning on Friday, got the wireless, a new wireless system put in. And it's actually a much better wireless system, which means hopefully the videos won't be as glitchy from now on. So one by one, I'm trying to improve things. I'm a limited man, however, very limited man. My technological skills and my artistic skills. What I do is talk. I research, I write, I give opinions. I have perspective. I analyze. I'm obnoxious. I guess is obnoxious, is that a quality? Probably a little bit. Depends on your perspective. The other thing, I wore this hat the other day, and I never talked about what it was. And I feel I should do that because that's sort of a tradition here on the Bernie Show. 1969 Seattle Pilots. And I was really excited to get this because when I was 11, 12 years old, I couldn't wait to read Ball 4 because it was in the news. It was controversial. Nothing like that had ever been written by an athlete before, not to that extent anyway, by Jim Bouton. And I love that book. I devoured it. I mean, I went through it so fast, and I read it again, and I read it again, and I read it again, And then for the longest time, I haven't read it for, a few years probably, but I would make sure to read that once a year because it was just so brilliant. Jim Bouton, who was a fading major league pitcher, used to be a fireballer with the Yankees, really, really good, lost his fastball because of injuries. Then he tried to reinvent himself as a knuckleball pitcher. He was very, very sharp. He was very, very observant and witty. And he did a diary of the 1969 season. The only season that the Seattle Pilots existed in Seattle. And then they moved to Milwaukee. There was a car dealer there named Bud Selig who put together a group to bring the Pilots to Milwaukee, who became the Brewers. But I love that book. It had a huge impact on me. And the Seattle Pilots, kind of one of my favorite, if not favorite cult teams, if you know what I mean by cult teams, just kind of a one-year oddity. And yet they were a cultural phenomenon in terms of baseball because of that book. And one other thing about it, and this is for those of you who read and adored Ball 4 as much as I did. So I don't remember the timing of this because the years go by quick, and I've been around a long time. But I was going to I went to like a Christmas banquet type thing, and it was a luncheon. And so I was just, I was randomly seated at a table. I knew a few people at the table, generally all sports people, but not just sports people. But anyway, seated to my right was a gentleman who was reserved, an elderly gentleman. He was reserved, and he wasn't particularly friendly, but that doesn't mean he was being, rude or anything. He just didn't really volunteer much. But you know who it was, and this is for all you Seattle Pilots fans of Ball 4. It was the manager of the Pilots, Joe Schulz. And Joe Schulz is really one of the great characters in that book because of the stuff he would tell the Mariners and kind of the Pilots. And because of some of his sayings that would just crack up the players. I can't repeat him here because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube, but he just had a gift of gab, away with words. And Joe Schulz, native St. Louis, and really good baseball man, but he's known in the history, at least among people that love baseball literature. He'll always be known as the manager of the Seattle Pilots in '69. But I tried to make a conversation with Joe. I found out Joe Schulz didn't really enjoy Didn't really enjoy talking about the 69 pilots, and he definitely did not enjoy talking about Jim Bouton. I'll leave it at that. And I was polite after making some gentle inquiries. I did not push the matter. I backed off. I figured Joe Schulz deserves his peace and quiet. Doesn't need some big mouth like me asking him about Jim Bouton and ball four. Anyway, so I spent 5 minutes saying hello, but this is how I roll, because one of the things I do is I like to tell stories. And then one of the things I'm going to do as we go along, I got a million stories. I have so many stories from my career that I actually forget them. And I don't mean like they're forgotten forever. But when I think about, okay, what would be a good story I could tell? And I can think of 10 off the top of my head, and there's a lot more. And then it'll, a year or two will go by, and then I'll have a memory about covering something. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell that story. So as time goes on, because of the people at the radio station I used to work for, both radio stations I used to work for, now I work for KMOX, man. Am I proud to be back with KMOX? Loving every minute of that. I would tell these crazy stories because I had a lot of crazy experiences in my career, and I would tell these crazy stories. There were just, some of them were just wild, and people just love the stories because they're great stories, not because of me, although I guess I was relatable in a way, and I told them in a way that, often was kind of self-deprecating, where I was in the middle of the story sometimes, so I'd make fun of myself. So we're going to have some special story time videos, and I won't waste your time with them because I wouldn't tell you the stories unless I thought the stories were really, really good, or they weren't the kind of stories that in the past people didn't absolutely love. So anyway, see, now I just wasted another 2 minutes, huh? Bad. I'm bad at this job. Anyway, here's what I want to talk about today. Katie Wu breaking another story in the Athletic. Letting us all know that Turner Ward will not be back as the batting coach. This is hardly a surprise. A couple weeks ago, there was a note about something like Ollie Marmol would like to have all of his coaches return. But, I haven't paid attention to what else might have gone down today. I'm going to probably do another video later now that I have wireless and I can do videos again, although I do have a couple other things I have to do today. I was kind of backed up from yesterday's delay. Anyway, so they may make other coaching changes, but for now, I just want to talk about Turner Ward. And I think this was about the most predictable thing ever. And although I do think that we all, including me, tend to blame hitting coaches, kind of like the first place we go, blame the hitting coach, not the general manager, not the president of baseball operation, not the player himself. It's kind of a thing. People jump on the hitting coaches. I'm not trashing anybody because, like I said, I do it myself. But in this case, they just had to. I mean, there are certain situations and there are certain things that scream out to me and to you about their performance in 2024 offensively. And it was really just an awful offense, just awful. And you've heard me talk about it on these videos that the thing that was irritating about it, they never seemed to have any kind of consistent approach. I don't know what they were trying to teach. Either they were not teaching and instructing well. I'm talking about Turner Ward. I'm talking about, they have two other hitting coaches, but one of them, Brandon Allen's going to be back. I can't testify to whether I think he's good or bad because I don't know enough about it, but they are keeping him. But there were so many things that jumped out at me about the Cardinals offense. And the one thing I like to do, and I'm going to do it for you now, is when I look at a unit that has really underperformed, and one of the questions I want to probe about that offense is like, okay, well, we know they didn't score a lot of runs. I mean, I can tell you the stuff they didn't do well. I mean, they were 22nd in the major leagues and 12th in the National League in runs per game. And, the runners in scoring position, batting average, basically the worst in baseball. If you want to count the Chicago White Sox, they were worse, but, that ain't much to brag about. Well, we were better than the White Sox. Worst in the National League with it. It was a huge problem all year. They left so many runs on the table and they took so many awful at-bats. Just the quality of the bats was so terrible. I've given you this stat before, but I'm not giving you the whole stat now. I'm just giving you the conclusions. when they were batting with runners in scoring position this year, one of the worst things about it is that they took so many called strikes, and that they also chased pitches out of the zone, and that they did not punish strikes the way you're supposed to punish strikes. And that's why pitchers had no fear throwing them strikes, because the Cardinals would either take it or they wouldn't manhandle it. They wouldn't power it up. And so they had really bad habits. They had really bad tendencies. They had very predictable tendencies. Nothing ever changed. So what I was going to say is that either the batting instructor, well, there's like three things. Either the lead batting coach wasn't able to get his message across because maybe he's not good at that, or maybe he had no message to impart in a way that could change the performance. Maybe he just didn't have much to add. Maybe the players didn't listen to him, or maybe another possibility, frankly, players weren't real smart. The hitters, kind of dumb, because when you see these bad habits and you see these tendencies that really, really are a huge factor on why their offense was so bad, you have to at least bring in a new coach and a new set of eyes, and someone who can look at hitters that struggle or see offensive trends. And you say, well, how could it be this bad? What are we doing wrong in these situations? For example, you got to get a fresh set of eyes. You got to get someone that, can start fresh with this group in terms of seeing what they did wrong on an individual and a team basis last year, making sure there is an approach, and that the approach is reinforced consistently in meetings and messaging and everything else. But you need new eyes. You need new thinkers that can come up with solutions to get people like Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker on track. And we all agree with that. So what I did this morning, when I was waiting for someone to come save me and put in that new wireless system, what did the Cardinals do well offensively in 2024? And the answer is not much. I mean, if you want me to waste your time by pointing out a few positives that really didn't move the needle, I can do that. But my point being is that the things that they did poorly were much more important to the outcome, much more important to their overall terrible showing offensively. Those things primarily caused this terrible showing offensively, so many players and as a team. So yeah, I could just say, well, I'm trying to be fair, so let me point this out. But they never really excelled in anything. They were good at a few things. They had the worst habits, though. And can I go through this? And I got to throw some numbers at you, or the impact of the stats will get lost, and you won't really be able to comprehend just how bad it was. So let me try to do this. All right, question number one: did they hit the ball hard? When you hit the ball hard, not every single time you hit the ball hard, but if you hit the ball hard over the course of the season, you're going to have good numbers. I mean, every now and then there's a bad luck season. And the Cardinals had a couple guys who didn't have the best batted ball luck this year. But as a team, did the Cardinals hit the ball hard? No, they did not. Depending on what stat site you look at, they were either 21st or 22nd in hard hit rate. Okay, so they didn't hit the ball hard. All right. And this is related. Okay, what about their average exit velocity? This is about hitting it hard. They were 18th in Major League Baseball. That's nothing to brag about. I mean, that's not good. You don't want to be near there. You want to be much better than that. Even their home runs, what was the average distance on their home runs? Their average distance was 19th. So they didn't hit it hard. They didn't barrel up enough pitches. They had a mediocre at best average exit velocity. Even their home run shots didn't travel all that far relative to the rest of the league. And we all, not me, because I understand launch angle, and I understand that it's sort of been co-opted into this title or into this label that condemns the new style of hitting in Major League Baseball, because I hear everybody complain about them damn launch angles all the time. Well, that's a problem. They're too worried about these damn launch angles. No wonder that they can't hit. They're just worrying about launch angles. I've heard that 1,000 times. And it's just sort of become a cliche, because I don't know that a lot of people even understand what a launch angle is, because I know I didn't until I finally did some research on it maybe last year. You know what a launch angle is? If you have a good launch angle, I'll spare you a lot of details here about what a good launch angle is. Okay. But if you have a good launch angle, you know what it means? Seriously, seriously, it means you're going to hit a lot of line drives. So I would ask you humbly, politely, why would anyone be opposed to line drives? No, seriously. Why would anyone be opposed to line drives? Line drives are really, really good. So it wasn't a case of the Cardinals are trying to hit the ball out of the park. They're trying to hit fly balls. Yeah, but some of the hitters, you want them to get the ball off the ground. You want them to hit it in the air. But line drives are in the air, man. And line drives come off the bat fast. And the defense has a hard time. Unless you hit it right at somebody, your line drive's going to find space, man. So that's what a launch angle is. It means you're hitting line drives if your launch angle is good. So the Cardinals, in terms of launch angle, because again, I heard it a million times. Oh, well, their brains are all messed up because of this launch angle. No. And one of the reasons they weren't a very good team offensively is because their launch angle is terrible. So if they were obsessing over it and they were putting up a good launch angle at the expense of other parts of hitting, well, then that would be a legitimate complaint. But the thing of it is their launch angle was terrible. So they didn't benefit from it. And I don't think they also went overboard on it. They were 20th. They were 20th in the league in launch angle in terms of being in the ideal space, in terms of degrees where you want a team to be. There's kind of like a hot zone for that. And the Cardinals were nowhere near it. Here's a couple of things that really bother me. So we talked about that, hitting the ball hard. Did they do it? No, they did not. Did they use the analytics? Did they use all the things that the metrics told them about what happens when you have a launch angle that lands in that zone where you're going to get really good results? And it doesn't mean trying to hit home runs. It means elevating the ball. No, they were bad at it. So they didn't even have the launch angle to go with into this new menu that younger hitters and teams talk about. So they failed in that area as well. Like all the things that you would call advanced metrics, they failed at. And the only reason advanced metrics hitting categories were a problem, the only reason is because they failed at it. Not because the analytics themselves were some kind of abhorrent new trend ruining baseball. No. It's funny. The teams that score a lot of runs, most of them, they're really excellent in terms of the analytics, the way they've adapted to analytics and the way they implement the knowledge from analytics and the way that leads to better results. It's funny how that works. When you actually know what you're doing with the analytics are your friend. They're not like a disgrace to baseball. The smart teams, and there's that word again, the smart teams know how to use them and know how to incorporate them, know how to make themselves better by explaining them and staying on the players about them and getting the players to buy in. Analytics can be very, very good for your offense if you're smart about it. And we know that there's a team locally here not real smart about things like that. So there's that. They failed the analytics / metrics test. What about strike zone judgment? To me, I think this could be the biggest problem. Okay. And I got to believe that a hitting coach, one thing a hitting coach can do, we probably expect too much out of any hitting coach, but the one thing they can do is, something about as simple and old-fashioned and old school as could be. There's nothing fancy or convoluted about this. If you get what they call a meatball pitch, which means basically throwing it right down the middle to the hitter, right? Heart of the strike zone, meatball. Another word for it is a cookie. That's what hitters love. Oh, he threw me a meatball. Yeah, I hit it up there. Did you see where it landed? I threw me a cookie. I hit it 430. The Cardinals, I mean, this just amazes me. And this is stuff that I would put on a hitting coach because obviously it wasn't emphasized enough. Because if it was emphasized enough and the players ignored it, well, then that's an indictment on the coach too. And if what I'm about to tell you, and if the hitting coach did emphasis, hey, you got to swing at these meatball pitches. You get one coming down the middle, you got to hammer that pitch. Well, if they were ignoring it, that's an indictment of the hitting coach. If they were trying to do what he said, then that's an indictment of them. They're not real smart. Simple as that. Because who the heck would just stand there and look at pitches right down the middle all the time? So the Cardinals, in terms of their swing rate, in other words, pitches down the middle, meatball pitches right down the middle, how often did they swing at them on a percentage basis? Of all the meatballs that they got, how many did they swing at? Well, their swing percentage on those meatball pitches, 73.3%, last in the majors. So the Cardinals swung at fewer pitches put on a tee for them right down the middle, cookies, meatballs, right where if a hitter could order up a pitch, he would say, "Oh, could you put it right there? Could you put it right there? Here, can you put it like right there?" And the pitchers, there's all kinds of data that shows the pitchers did not hesitate to challenge the Cardinals hitters in the strike zone, because the Cardinals would look at too many pitches, hittable pitches, perfect hitters pitches, so to speak. They'd let them go by. So pitchers are like, well, these guys are really kind of dumb. Just challenge them. Throw them a meatball. They'll look at it probably. They're going to look at it more than any team in baseball. So that's the kind of stuff that drives me crazy, because that stuff should be correctable. That stuff doesn't have a lot to do with your athleticism or your raw natural hitting ability. When you're standing there all season long looking at all these great pitches go by, that's just a stupid plate approach. It makes no sense. It's idiotic. Let's be honest about this. So, yeah, the number of meatball pitches they swung at were lowest in the majors, and it wasn't really even close. Now their chase rate wasn't great. It was about average. Okay, it wasn't great. So the Cardinals actually they were like tied for first this season in terms of pitches thrown to them that were in the strike zone. So you would think, well, that'll be, they can punish that. They can punish some pitches because the pitchers are challenging them. And, this is what hitters supposedly want. Not tricks, just, hey, here it is, hit it if you can. So the Cardinals tied for first this year in terms of an offense, the percentage of strikes thrown to an offense. They were tied for first for the highest percentage. That should be a recipe to have a really good offense and a lot of production, but it wasn't with these guys. This season, in case you're wondering, the Cardinals hitters as a team. This is from StatCast. 4,229 called strikes. There were only 3 teams who had more called strikes against them all season. In terms of the strikes against them that were called strikes, second highest percentage in the majors. So if we wonder why their offense was so bad and why they left so many runners on base and runners in third or second base, and these called strike counts, these really, really terrible percentages of like watching strikes go by, it was really, really bad, especially bad when they batted with runners in scoring position. So what about the very best pitches that there are? Again, in terms of location, and I'm going to go back to the heart of the plate, the meatball pitches, right down the middle. The Cardinals for the season, all of their at-bats, 1,916 called strikes on pitches thrown right down the middle. That's the second highest total in the regular season this year. So I'm just asking you, now that you know the stats, and thank you for trying to keep up with the stats, because I know reading numbers is kind of boring, but it's the only way I could tell you the story, at least until I learn how to do them fancy pants graphics. How How are you going to have a good offense if you're standing there watching great pitches go by, hitters' pitches? How could you possibly realize your offensive potential? You can't. And that's why they were so bad. That's why they're so mediocre most of the time. And a lot of these hitters had those bad habits, by the way. So what happens? Here's the other thing, and this is related. All right, what happens when they make contact? When somebody throws them a meatball right down the middle, heart of the plate, yada, yada, yada. What do they do with it? Do they do damage with it? Not really. Batting average, when they put a ball in play, which you would call a meatball pitch, 19th out of 30. Slugging percentage, 25th out of 30. Home runs, 26th out of 30. Again, this is when you swing and put the ball in play on so-called meatball pitches, heart of the zone pitches, cookies, whatever. Even when they did swing and even when they didn't make contact on these prime pitches for a hitter, they didn't do much with them. They also hit a lot of ground balls when making contact with those heart of the strike zone pitches. So they got a lot to clean up here. The reason why I gave you the numbers, all these numbers, because I wouldn't do it unless it really, 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 really mattered to the success of an offense. They did everything you're not supposed to do. And it wasn't so much physical as it was between the ears. And see, this is where I happen to believe coaching really does matter. Okay? I think it really does matter. Because part of coaching is your messaging and explaining the philosophy and reinforcing it over and over again until the team sort of adopts it, and that's their identity. That's their approach. And everyone says, well, for example, the Kansas City Royals, all right? Boy, these guys make great contact. You know, they're not going to swing and miss a lot. And they're going to be aggressive in the strike zone. And they're going to do this, they're going to do that. You know, a team develops that personality, and there's a scouting report on it, and that's okay. The scouting report that was used against the Cardinals is basically taking advantage of the Cardinals' stupidity. There's really no other way to put it. So I do think coaching matters in stuff like this. Because what's the point of having coaches if it's such an obvious thing? Don't look at so many called strikes. You have to stop doing this. It's killing us. You know, if you can't get your team to see the wisdom of that, then you got the worst coaches ever, or your hitters are the dumbest ever. It's one of the two, or maybe a combination. So I wanted to pass that along. But really, this if you look, it was such a one more thing on this. It was such a dreadful year for the Cardinals offense. If you look at their position players, and this actually incorporates some defense too, but if you look at wins above replacement, their highest WAR guy was 50th in the major leagues. That's Brendan Donovan. And I should say Mason Winnett, 42nd in the league. Brendan Donovan, 50th. Arenado, 56. Goldschmidt, 109. In other words, if you're just trying to grade their position players compared to other teams, when your two best position players finish 42nd and 50th in wins above replacement, you don't have much of a group. Goldschmidt led the Cardinals in home runs with 22. Burleson was second with 21. The Cardinals had not had 21 as the team lead in home runs since 2014. That was Johnny Peralta. So you got to go back more than 10 years when they had a team leading total lower than 22. And there were times where the Cardinals would have three guys hitting 30 or more, or 4 guys hitting 24 or more, whatever that might be. I went back and researched all this. I'm just like in 2015, Matt Carpenter had 28. In 2016, Jed Jerko, of all people, had 30. Brandon Moss had 28. In 2017, Paulie D. Young led him with 25. 2018, Matt Carpenter, 36. 2019, Goldie with 34, DeYoung with 30, Ozuna with 29. In 2021, you had three 30-homer guys. Arenado, Tyler O'Neill, and Goldschmidt. 2022, you had Goldschmidt, 35 homers, Arenado, 30. 2023, Gorman, 27, Arenado, 26, Goldie, 25. This year, The team lead 22. You have got to win by hitting home runs in this game, the game of baseball. And I'm not saying it's the only way to score. It's not. It's not. For example, don't watch a million strikes go by. Maybe hit some doubles, something like that. But when your power is that limited, I don't know how your offense is going to function. And when you're looking at called strikes all day, I don't know how your offense is going to function well. It's not. And so even though the Turner Ward dismissal was not only completely 100% justified, but also 100% expected, it's still good to see that the Cardinals decided, well, we better go ahead and do it. Now, if they had decided to keep Paul Goldschmidt around, who knows? Turner Ward's Goldie's guy, right? Uncle Bernie here has been telling you that a long time. That's why Turner Ward was even here. Here's one more thing about it. So the Cardinals are going to have a fresh set of eyes, or maybe a couple or three fresh sets of eyes to put on those hitters. Give them some things to work on. Give them some ideas about philosophy. So what happens if some of this young core nucleus that they want to really, really ride with in 2025, what if they're just as bad next year? Well, that actually comes to a more disturbing conclusion rather than, oh, it's the batting coach. See, it's the batting coach. Got rid of him. And look how much better these guys got. But what if they don't get better? You know what that means? Not in every case, of course. Mason wins it. Heck of a player. I can name a couple others that I have, great hopes for. But if you make the coaching change and you figure the new coach is going to make them better, but they don't get better, you know what that means, right? Yeah. Maybe the players ain't that good. Maybe the hitters just ain't all that. And that's really a problem. That's a much bigger problem. Listen, I'm going to try to sneak back later. I appreciate your patience. Sorry I missed a video yesterday, but thank goodness for strong, reliable wireless. Don't appreciate it until you don't have it. You all have a great day. If I don't get back, you all have a wonderful weekend. And go Mizzou. We'll see what happens on Saturday at Texas A&M. Thank you.